I know that some in our audience know the finer points of hockey.
The Chris Johnston Show.
We are your friends.
The biggest stories, bringing you inside the game.
What did you hear?
The Chris Johnston Show.
What is going on?
Here's Chris with your host, Julian McKenzie.
Part of the game.
Hey, we're back. Happy summer, everyone.
Is this thing on?
I think it still works.
Does this still work? It feels so unfamiliar.
Where am I? What year is it?
Say it ain't so.
What's going on?
Do we have to be focused and work again?
I don't know. I don't even know what structure we're really supposed to have. I literally wrote down topics for us to talk about last night in the chat. Maybe we'll get to all of them. Maybe we'll get to some of them. The point of this is just to kind of drop in, see how each of us are doing. If we get to some hockey topics, we'll get to hockey topics. But let's just have some fun for the next however long this podcast lasts. It's our summer drop-in. We try to do these at least once or twice a year.
Yeah, it's nice. I can tell you, this has been the fastest summer I remember.
Really?
Like I've had a great time. Nothing like that's not the comment. It's just I can't believe I woke up and it's August 12th. Like, how did that happen? It feels. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of like, it's like the opposite of the Sunday scaries. I'm getting like the summer scaries. Like I'm starting to feel like, I'm going to have to shave and get presentable again here soon.
Shave?
Yeah, I'm just
no. Look, here's the thing. I love bearded CJ. Like, I think it's like a really dope look. I don't know how long you've like embodied that look. When you get back, if you ever decide, you know what, I'm going to clean shaven CJ again, like, that's going to be jarring for me, bro. I don't know if I'm ready for that. I don't know if I'm ready for you to do that.
I guess I should put it, that's not on the table. I'm not changing, but I meant more.
Thank God.
It was just more of a nod towards like, have to get presentable, have to get serious again, have to get working again. I mean, it's been a great summer, and I hope the same for you, man. I have been pretty unplugged, if I'm going to be honest. This will be a true outsider show today.
Well, I mean, I've been kind of plugged in a little bit. I don't know if I ever really turned myself off, but I do go hard, and you can tell my voice is not 100% for whatever reason. Just it's a lot of partying and a lot of good times these last few weeks, as best as I could have. So sorry for the voice breaks that'll happen throughout this podcast. Anyway,
no problem. We're just getting back up to speed. This doesn't have to be perfect.
All right, so first thing we're going to talk about on the podcast, Sidney Crosby.
Isn't that the last thing we talked about on the podcast? I feel like 4 weeks have elapsed, but isn't that about where we left off?
That is exactly where we left off. The very last episode we did before we went to summer break, excuse me, there was a report that went out that the Penguins were close to an extension with Sidney Crosby. That was about a month ago. August 7th, his birthday, passed. I was convinced that that would be the day we hear some kind of announcement regarding Sidney Crosby. That day has come and passed. What's going on at this point? Like, I mean, at this point, we can at least say it's weird that nothing's been done, right? I don't think we're being irresponsible. I don't think we're being the quote unquote typical Canadian media trying to make a story out of nothing. What's going on?
Well, first of all, maybe you can explain to me, why did everyone think he was going to sign on his birthday? Like, I know
he's superstitious. It's the 87th.
Yeah, but he's never signed his other deals on his birthday. Like, it was weird to me that somehow became a storyline. I'm like, why? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, he signed other contracts not on August 7th.
Fair, but like, I guess it's because of the fact that he is a superstitious person. I think there was even a story in the weekend before his birthday. I saw Bar Down posted it, where he had gone to a gas station and obviously didn't want anyone to know who he was, but he pumped the dollar amount 87.87, and someone showed off the receipt inside the gas station. Basically, it's like his insignia, I guess. And that made me think, oh, it's 87. Like, what's going to happen? Like, it's his birthday. Like, what are we doing with this contract? Like, I think it's just small stuff like that. And when you're wondering what could happen, you hang on to any little sign that could be a step in the right direction.
Sure. And, you know, I think the way to look at this is obviously Sidney Crosby and his representatives call the shots in this situation. I mean, you know, two parties have to make a deal, but I don't think it's a mystery to know that Fenway Sports Group and the Penguin senior management would want to sign Sidney Crosby. It is the summer. I mean, there's not a whole lot happening out there. And, I think it'll just be a matter of when they get back to talking and finalizing the agreements. I mean, the fact he's 37 now, but it's considered an over 35 contract in the CBA. It means that there's sort of fewer mechanisms available in structuring the deal. If he signs a 4-year term but only plays 3, there's penalties involved in that. I mean, so I think that it's not a complex negotiation in that they're fighting for every last $100,000 this way and that way. But, I think it's more just take a breath, enjoy the summer, go partying with Julian, go traveling with CJ, and get back to it. It reminds me a little bit, last year, Austin Matthews signed his extension with the Leafs in late August, kind of, I'd say out of nowhere. The reason it was out of nowhere is because basically the talks had been put on pause while everyone enjoyed their summer. And then, I think it was all done in a day at the end. Essentially, Austin's, agent phoned the Leafs and said, okay, we're ready to do this. And they hammered it out and announced it at 5 or 6 p.m. on a random Wednesday in August. I think you could see something similar happen that way in the Crosby situation. And so I wouldn't sound any alarm bells on this one. I can understand though why people, I mean, look, it was that was where we started. We weren't actually trying to start any problems, but we were just saying like, it would be weird. This was back at the start of July, like that, he didn't sign on July 1st. What's going on? I don't think this one is a huge issue brewing, but I guess probably the next check mark, and it's not a deadline, but if he shows up to training camp and they haven't signed an extension, I mean, obviously that becomes a story, right? And so training camp's still more than a month away. And so I do think that I'm not going to be reading anything too, I have no reason to believe from what I've heard around this that there's any reason to think this is going the wrong way. And then if it will only be if we get to September 15th or 16th or 17th or really close to training camp and nothing's been done, that I think, could be some cause for like, deeper think pieces and all the stuff that drives everyone in Pittsburgh batty. But, all along, I think it's made so much sense for them to stay together. It was only if maybe there was something, inside Sidney Crosby that he started to think, well, we just don't have a chance to win here. That's a priority. But I don't have any reason to believe that's the case now.
Well, you just broke producer Drew's heart with that. He was this close to ordering a Sidney Crosby Colorado Avalanche jersey. How are you going to break to him the bad news?
Well, hopefully he's listening to the episode. We appreciate the download and listen, Drew. And look, at anything's still possible. Like the way he played last season, I mean, the only, like he's going to now play a season beyond where Wayne Gretzky played, I believe, in terms of age. I think Wayne Gretzky retired at 36, if I'm not mistaken. We've seen the Joe Pavelskis and Joe Thornton and Zdeno Chara, a number of players sort of in recent memory have played well into their 40s and performed at a pretty high level. I mean, Jaromir Jagr had some pretty impressive seasons when he was already into his 40s. And so, I don't know how long Sidney Crosby intends to play. I suspect he doesn't know 100% either, but I think it'll be his call. He's going to leave this career, I would hope, on his terms. And it could still mean that, maybe he's down to 2 or 3 seasons, but if he keeps feeling healthy, if he keeps performing at the level he's playing, maybe it ends up being 4 or 5. And, let's see where those 4 or 5 are played. I mean, 5 years is an eternity in pro sports.
I believe according to Hockey Reference, I'm just looking through their page really quickly. I think Gretzky got into his age 38 season. So they're pretty close.
Bad math. Look at that. I'm already rusty.
Everything you've explained.
But the point is he's getting close.
Yeah, exactly.
He just turned 37 here in the last week. I mean, he's basically getting to the point that we've seen other superstars step away from the game. Wayne Gretzky did it under his own terms. Like it wasn't an injury that forced him out. It wasn't like no one wanted to pay him. He just decided that he'd had enough and he wasn't, I think it was a little bit at that time. Gretzky felt like his skills had diminished to a point. It wasn't as fun for him if he wasn't one of the absolute best players in the league. He actually had a pretty good last season. It wasn't like he was suddenly a 25-point winger, playing situational minutes on the Rangers team. But Crosby's coming off 90-point seasons. You know, I think we should savor every one of them, because at any point, just given what we know about age and age-related decline, that could sort of slip through his fingers. He might not have that still in him, but I just have a feeling this guy's going to play into the 40s. It's just a guess. I mean, that's a lot. That would be still 3 more seasons plus, but seems to love the game, and he's still one of the absolute best out there.
I literally had a thought that I was going to bring up. I mean, just you could tell our brains are just getting back into the swing of things here. I was thinking about the Four Nations, and Crosby's going to be on that team. I completely forgot about this tournament that's going to be coming up in February, which will allow us to see international hockey again, which will allow us to see Sidney Crosby wear Team Canada's uniform again.
Yeah,
completely
and look,
forgot about that.
We know. I think we'll always have reasonable expectations of what this Four Nations tournament is. Like it's just a sort of reintroduction towards what I think will be, the event that gets most hockey fans across the globe excited, which is the return to the Olympics in 2026. I mean, I would think somewhere in the back of Sidney Crosby's mind, that's a carrot, is to remain a player who would presumably captain that team and get a chance to play. I mean, he's going to get that. You're right. In February, he gets the chance to play with the likes of McDavid and McKinnon and the other sort of greats that have come beyond him in the game. But, I think that there's nothing quite like the Olympics. We'll recall that Sidney Crosby's played in 2 Olympics and has a gold medal from each of them, scored the golden goal in 2010, and also scored in the gold medal game against Henrik Lundqvist in 2014. I would think the opportunity potentially to win a 3rd gold medal, is strong for him. I mean, if we're starting to see where Sidney Crosby's legacy is, right? And no matter where it ends, and, he still has an ability to climb pretty high up the points chart, certainly into the top 5 all time, looks reachable and reasonable.
You don't have him there already now?
Sorry, I'm talking about like where he might finish on the all-time points list. Like he's
fair.
He's trending towards where a top 5 finish, I think, if he plays another couple seasons and you do the math, I think is something that's reasonable for him. But what's his legacy? His legacy is going to be all those wins. He was the ultimate winner. And getting 3 Stanley Cups with the Penguins, winning a World Hockey Championship, World Junior Championship, the World Cup in 2016. We'll see if he can add a Four Nations. We'll see if he can add a 3rd Olympic gold medal. Like all those things, each successive victory is just like one more huge notch on the pedestal. And so, to remain at the level he's been at, you have to be driven. Where does that drive come from? And I think, he's always been someone who's placed team championships and playing a certain way to help his teams be winners versus maybe maximizing. I'm thinking earlier in his career, where he could be in terms of, chasing scoring titles and things like that. He's going to go down as one of the ultimate team players ever. And so, the chance to win one more Olympic gold, it has to be somewhere in the back of his mind when this guy is a maniac. Like, and I say that in the best way possible. Remember, he came to the All-Star game in Toronto this year, and then there was like video of him in Montana, like skating the next day. Like he squeezes in his small vacation after fulfilling his obligations at the All-Star game, and he's still skating out there. Like to put himself through that time and time again, year after year, decade after decade now, you have to have those goals. And so for me, that's probably a huge one on his list, because, the truth be told, that 2014 team for any country, but Canada, will look at it. I mean, there's just not many players that will have a chance to have been on that one and this one. I mean, off the top of my head, you have, John Tavares, potentially could be there, in a much lower role now than where he was in Sochi. On the blue line, I mean, maybe Drew Doughty, I guess. Number of players have retired, right, in that period of time. Steven Stamkos, of course, missed the 2014 Olympic tournament when he broke his leg. He would be in the mix to potentially make it in 2026, but it's a small group of players that have remained at the top of the sport for that long. So, I'm my affinity, my affection for international hockey is well documented, but
yes,
I'm pretty excited. I think it'll be interesting is the best way to describe the Four Nations. I don't think it's going to be historically, doesn't really mean much. I mean, I guess it'll be a barometer, right? It'll be everyone's wondering, like, is Team USA going to be the dominant team? It'll be a chance to, I guess, get an understanding of that in a very quick tournament with, again, no real stakes, like it's an exhibition. But the Olympics are different. I mean, the cool thing, Julian, in watching the Paris Olympics these last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, like how many of the professional athletes were like moved by the experience. I mean, I'm a big golf fan. You know, you saw Scotty Scheffler, who's won absolutely everything, like crying on the podium when he won a gold medal for Team USA. Lydia Ko on the women's side, the same thing. Obviously, the basketball tournament was played with, you know, athletes who have lots of money and lots of fame and everything, but it, you know, it clearly meant something to them. You know, I think that 2026 will be so special because hockey hasn't had anything like it in so long.
Here's something that crossed my mind, speaking of the Olympics this weekend. 2026, all well and good. It's going to be great to see players back if we can get to that point. What if we had ball hockey as an Olympic sport in 2028? Kind of thinking along the lines of flag football being a thing in 2028 in Los Angeles. I don't know if you saw the promo they did partway through where Jalen Hurts is throwing a football at the LA Coliseum. What if you had like a ball hockey Olympic tournament that you could play like outside during the summer games? Like, I think that'd be a sick idea.
It would be cool. Look, they have ball hockey world championships, and sometimes NHL players or recently retired NHL players have been known to compete in those types of tournaments. So, I mean, I'm not here to hate on anyone else's sport or the other sport that say like, well, if this is in, it should be. But I think there's a case for it, and you know, you could probably get. You know, the biggest barrier of entry to hockey is skating. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's lots of other skills and abilities that go into the sport, but you don't see someone who's a great athlete at 15 take up the game and make the NHL anymore. Like, it's just because you can't learn skating to a degree where you can become one of the best in the league. Whereas, you know, we've seen great soccer players transition and become NBA players in like 3 years because they're amazing athletes and they can, you know, focus on a different discipline and apply the skills and become great players. So I actually think oddly, ball hockey, you know, takes the skating out of it. You could probably have countries that aren't what we consider hockey powers, ice hockey powers, actually field pretty good teams in that if they decided to try to funnel athletes in that direction. So I have no downside about it. Do you know what's funny? Way back when the Olympics first brought on ice hockey, the NHL was pushing to have them be part of the summer games.
Really?
You know, because at that time, you know, the thought was, why disrupt the season? You know, even though it's played in a warm weather place, obviously it's played indoors. And the initial idea, going way back when Gary Bettman and the NHL owners were dealing with the ILC, was to have it be considered part of the summer games. That didn't happen. Obviously, it's become a marquee event in the winter games where it's been held. But yeah, I have no issue with that. And it seems like the ILC is happy to try all these new sports in terms of, you know, new sports, but allow them into the games. They've taken baseball out of the summer games. I don't fully get that, and softball as well. But I'd be all for a ball hockey championship.
I mean, I don't know if it makes me think of the breaking competition, the break dancing. Did you see that Australian woman do that ridiculous dance that went viral a couple days ago? Like, we could play around with some of those sports. We could keep breaking, but like, if we're willing to add stuff like that, I don't see why ball hockey can't make this list.
I'm going to be honest. I only knew breaking was in there because of the memes. Like I didn't.
Yeah, that's it.
I didn't watch the competition. I honestly didn't know it was now an Olympic sport. Yeah. But you know, if you've logged into X in the last like 5 to 6 days, you couldn't help but miss the Australian routine and a few others. And I know Canada won a gold medal.
Yes,
breaking. So.
The Wizard. Shout out to the Wizard for doing his thing in that competition. Yeah, we're gonna find a way to make ball hockey a thing in the Olympics, man. I will drive that bus.
Did you watch a lot of Olympic coverage, or have you been otherwise busy?
In and out. So like, I was in the States for a couple days. I watched a little bit of NBC's coverage of some of the gymnastic events. I watched some of the track and field stuff at home, like the 4x100. That's one of the best things that happened the entire Olympics. Just seeing Canada do their thing. Hey man, look, tough for the United States for them to get DQ'd, but I don't root for the United States in those competitions. So yeah, that's my favorite part of the Olympics for me. But there were so many great events, so many great moments that happened over these last few weeks. I got to watch a little bit here and there.
Yeah, I was going to ask you for your highlight. I mean, the 4x100 is an easy one to pick because it was so
Easy.
awesome, and I happened to catch that live, and it was sort of a surprising gold or an underdog gold for Canada. Summer McIntosh, like I was really into the swimming. It was on day after day after day, and like she had some amazing races, obviously winning the 3 gold medals. It was just I thought it was a really cool Olympics. Like you, I was sort of in and out. I was away when the game started, and so I didn't watch the first couple days, in live form. And then, when I was back home, I've been like glued to it the last couple weeks, and it's there's a lot of great moments and seemed like a successful game. So hopefully they carry that energy to 2026 because I'm pretty pumped for that hockey tournament.
How many Olympics have you been at?
Just the 2 in Vancouver and Sochi.
Okay. I mean, that's like a goal, a dream of mine. Like I want by the end of the decade to say I've covered at least 1 Olympics, and hopefully that adds on to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. But yeah, I wanna be at an Olympics.
Yeah, it's a cool experience. I mean, I don't know what it'll be like. It's almost so long. Like I don't know if it's changed. I haven't talked to any of our colleagues that have been over there in Paris covering it. I had a number of professional friends that worked at, but I felt in 2014 and 2010 like you weirdly feel like pride, even though you're obviously you haven't really won your way in. Like athletes have to either be selected for national teams or hit certain qualifying standards to get there. But it's hard not to sort of reflect on all the good things that have happened in your life, all the people that have contributed to your success and put you in a position to be there. Because like you feel like you're in the middle of this, like the biggest thing in the world. From the outside, I don't know if it is the biggest thing in the world because as I told you, there was like 5 days there where I didn't even like check what was going on. So, but it's pretty cool. And certainly, when I've gone to the Olympics, I'm trying to remember, I attended a couple events. Like I had a media pass. Like I kind of just went to a couple events, but mostly I've covered the hockey tournaments.
Yeah.
In Vancouver, I did just the men's tournament and everything around it, like any of the news. I've probably told the story in the pod, but it's the one and only time because I was there. It didn't start right at the very start of the games. Like I was being sent to the airport to like interview stop the hockey players when their planes landed and, get their initial, thoughts and write stories about that. In the women's, in 2014, I also covered the women's hockey tournament. I was there for Sportsnet and we didn't have very many people on the ground. I think it was just me and Arash Madani. And so I was doing all the women's and the men's as much as you could cover both because sometimes there was some overlap. But yeah, I basically covered hockey at the Olympics, if that makes sense. Like I didn't go and cover other sports. But either way, it's pretty cool. And I that even if you have an amazing career, you're only ever going to cover this, I'm not probably in line given where my career's gone. I'm not going to be covering a summer games very, very likely. So there's only so many you can ever go to. And, I hope to get the chance to do it again.
Okay, one last Olympics question, and then I'll get us back on track with more hockey stuff. I just in thinking of Elliot Friedman, who was covering rowing at this summer's games, and he's done play-by-play for swimming before. If there was an Olympic sport you could cover that wasn't hockey, well, that could be winter, that could be summer, and like you have to be all over, like writing, broadcasting, whatever. If there was another Olympic sport you could cover, which one would it be? I think I know what the answer is.
I'm torn. Honestly, I think I could do any of them. And I say that only because to me, what makes the Olympics so great is you get the stories of the athletes, right? And so I don't know that you have to be an expert in any of the disciplines to do a nice job of, getting to know people. And that's something like that's part of what we do that I like. If you follow my writing on hockey, I'm not breaking down power plays. Like there's so many people that do amazing systems related stuff. Like it's just not where my strength is. I like getting to know people and I like telling the human stories. And obviously, we get into what's going on with the business of how the sport works and trades and all that stuff. But, so I think I could do any of it. I would be most interested probably in the running sports, just because I like running. Like I really loved watching Mo Ahmed, and he had a tough Olympics, unfortunately, because in the 10,000 meter, he was in position to medal and just got passed at the line after running a great race. And in the 5,000, unfortunately, he was involved in a collision and went down and didn't qualify for the final. But, I really can appreciate I mean, I can't appreciate it. For me, saying it would be like a beer league player saying, like, I understand what NHL players go through. Given this, I'm just saying, like, where my running level is and where it's ever been, even at its best, to where theirs is. But I can at least appreciate those sports. So I'd love to cover the marathon. I'd love to cover some of the distance track events. Even more, like, I'd love to witness the 100-meter final. I mean, that feels like it's the iconic thing, but I don't know that I need to cover that because I'm not. But I sort of, I think, would gravitate to a sport where you have someone like Mo Ahmed, that people maybe don't know a whole lot about, but is a pretty accomplished runner in his own right and is doing things no Canadian has done before. Like that's probably where I'd like to go. I mean, I love golf and I've covered a lot of golf over the years. So that would probably be in the second place. But if I got to choose, probably the distance running events or even just track and field in general. Although I'll be honest, I didn't know much about hammer throwing until Canada won 2 gold medals in it.
That's the best thing. Like everyone becomes like sort of an expert, like for 2-3 days, however long this event lasts, and then you forget about it until the next 4 years. But yeah, I didn't know we were that good at hammer throwing until this year. I'm in the same boat as that.
Well, truthfully, you only need 2 athletes to say you're that good. We had an amazing performance from each athlete that won there. It's cool. I mean, and there's also some heartbreaking stories along the way, like the heptathlon, and anyway, it was awesome. And it's sort of renewed. It like kind of like took some. Because I've literally, in case you're even wondering, I have not watched baseball since we last talked.
Ooh,
like I was
not going to go there. I purposely did not include any baseball in our rundown.
But I'm saying I have kept my promise on that. My Blue Jays boycott continues until they clean up their organization and get serious. And so this has filled a void because, like, honestly, the chill moments in summer, like when you're just at home or whatever at a cottage, like that's one reason I've loved baseball so much. It's like it's something that gets you through it. But I might go to a game. I'll say there's talk of going to a game before the hockey season boots back up, but I'm definitely not watching the television product or dialing into the radio broadcast. So the Olympics has filled that void is what I'm getting at.
Why not go to another ballpark? I got to go to Camden Yards this summer and it's beautiful. That's a ballpark.
It's cool. I've been there before. God. It's a great spot.
Yeah. Why not go there? Why not go like somewhere else? You don't have to go to Rogers Center to watch baseball.
Well, I live in Toronto, so the easy answer is it's easy to get on the subway and go there versus getting on a plane and go somewhere else. I don't know. I don't have the travel itch. I was in Europe in July for a little bit, and that was great. And it was awesome. But I knowing that, the course of our jobs involves some travel, and actually just coming through that June with all the Edmonton, Florida, Vegas stuff. I'm okay. I'm okay. Just, resting easy. And, I'll probably go down to Rogers Center for one game. We'll see. I don't have tickets yet. So I haven't committed, but there's been some discussion about it with some friends, and I'll probably just, bite the bullet and go.
Probably on Looney Dog night, I presume.
I'm up for that. I haven't had a lot of hot dogs this summer. So like I feel fresh. Like I think I could put a dent into the Looney Dog, combo if we ever get down on one of those nights, Tuesdays, I think.
Okay. I wrote down a list of just random NHL players, and the topic above them, just what's the latest on those guys. Crosby was at the top of that list. If you don't have anything, it's cool if you don't, but there's guys like Leon Draisaitl and a few RFAs like Jeremy Swayman, Mo Seider, Lucas Raymond, Seth Jarvis. I put Patrik Laine on there because he's been cleared from the player assistance program, but we've talked about the fact that he could be seeking a new suitor, a new team. Just if there's anyone on that list you think there is worth, there's a nugget there, there's intel there, the floor is yours with that. There's no pressure. This is as low stakes of a segment as I can make it.
Okay. Well, I think Laine is likely going to have to play his way out of Columbus. He's still got this year and 3 more on his contract.
He's still got a few more years, yes.
I mean, 4 years at $8.7 million is a significant amount of money. It's there's not many teams, frankly, that could just jam that into their cap picture right now. And, I think that there's a huge unknown because he's gone through, a personal struggle here where he had to enter the NHL player assistance program. I've seen the videos online. He was training with NFL players.
I saw that
looks
too.
very fit, looks motivated. I think, and that's encouraging. I mean, that's great. And I saw he also got engaged recently, so he's had a busy summer in his own right. But it just feels most likely that he's going to have to come back to the Blue Jackets, translate that work that he's been doing off ice, and show something on ice that compels a team to step up and make a deal that makes sense for the Blue Jackets. Because there's a little bit of a, as much as you say like, we'll just get rid of him, like it's hard to get rid of a player. Patrik Laine isn't old; he's 26, but he's 6 years removed from his last 30-goal season. So he entered the league and just filled the net as a teenager, for the Winnipeg Jets. He showed you all that promise. Well, unfortunately, and there's all kinds of reasons. Look, we've been through a pandemic. He's been through a trade. There's been injuries. There's obviously, what led him to the player assistance program. Like a lot of stuff's happened, but he never parlayed that early success and kept growing and growing and growing. Right. I think where, the easiest one to point to is his draft year was Austin Matthews. Like Austin Matthews scored 40 goals in his first NHL season. And you're like, oh wow, there's more to come. And look at he's followed it up. He had a 69 goal season last year. Like he's been able to push himself, and we've seen all kinds of players. Unfortunately, Patrik Laine's on ice production and his career has stalled out a little bit. And so there's absolutely teams that are interested in and intrigued by him even, because the only way you usually get a player of his caliber in a trade is because something hasn't gone right. Generally, if that player is just killing it, that his team is never going to trade him when he's under contract. But this one feels like to me that he's going to be back with the Blue Jackets to start the year. And obviously I think the team will remain open to moving him, but he's going to have to do his part there too. Some of the other guys you mentioned, Seider and Raymond, unique spots with the Red Wings, both restricted free agents. I see these contracts as likely needing some kind of deadline imposed. And really the first deadline, of course, is the first day training camp for RFAs. And really the true deadline is the start of the season. So, I think that those will be negotiations that likely stretch a little while. And Detroit's doesn't have unlimited cap space, and they're dealing with two players and two players. I mean, Lucas Raymond finished last season on a heater for them when they made that push for the playoffs. So, those feel like ones that we're going to be talking to right into September. Who else did you mention there?
I mentioned Jeremy Swayman, Seth Jarvis, and Leon Draisaitl, who is a pending UFA for next summer.
Yeah, Draisaitl is the big one, right? And the Oilers played right until the end of June. They replaced their general manager with Stan Bowman's hiring. Mm-hmm. And this, I mean, it's no mystery. This is the biggest organizational decision they're likely to face, I guess, until they have to get Connor McDavid's signature on another contract, which, isn't in the too distant future. But, I think what'll be interesting with Draisaitl is if they don't reach the deal, how they manage that. I mean, it's not as though I think it'd be very unusual. I don't think he's going to be traded, you know what I mean, in the next few weeks. Like it just seems like the window to do that was really almost 2 days after their season ended, which is why it wasn't the best of timing. I suppose there could be something in season or something, if you get, but I think that with how great their year went and how important he is to the foundation of the team, I think you got to let this one play out a little bit. And obviously they're going to do everything they can to sign him, but it's a big decision for him because it's probably his last big contract, depending. I mean, I guess if he signs a 2-year deal, then he'll probably get one more big contract, but usually players in the situation go long-term. And those discussions just didn't get going at all until into July, like even just the initial discussions. And so you've had a team that played the Game 7 of the Cup final. You have a significant change in the front office. I think we're going to have to let this one breathe. And if you're an Oilers fan, you go, well, David Pastrnak 2 seasons ago, he played without an extension right until March. Maybe something similar will happen. It's good. To me, the Oilers are going to be one of the most fascinating teams of this next season. we know how good they are, but like to get as close as they did to doing something, almost magical, right? Coming back from 3-0 down, pulling out of the tailspin in the first month of the season. Even going behind in some of the series along the way, like they were oh so close. And you've probably seen the footage that's come out here in the last week or so. Zach Hyman talking right after that loss about hoping everyone's back and how much he believed in the team, how special they are. It just feels like there's going to be this is kind of an all or nothing season in a sense. I'm not saying there's definitely a world where everyone signs extensions and they've got a 5 or 10 year window to try to keep winning. But, if Draisaitl isn't signed and you're going into the, one of the 2 remaining years on McDavid's deal, like there's just a lot of uncertainty in the air. And I mean, man, they fell 1 goal short in the end. So I think they're just going to be an absolutely compelling team. And on top of that, they've changed their GM. And so there's going to be a shift, I'm sure, in how the team's operated in a sense, although, they did a pretty good job of re-signing all those players and they really did run it back and added Jeff Skinner on top of that. So, it's a long way of saying I don't get the sense anything's close. I think that clearly the Oilers will do whatever they can to sign Draisaitl, and he's got to make that decision, and he might want a little more time. I think that's his right. And, that's another one. It's not necessarily a big story on August 12th, but becomes a much bigger story on September 20th if nothing's changed.
You just made me realize something. There should be, I get this fall, we're going to see that show go around following some players from the past year and all that in the NHL. And I know the Canadians are doing their own kind of documentary style thing. I would love it. I would love it if like Amazon followed the Edmonton Oilers throughout this coming season, because you're right. They are a compelling story. You can make an argument they might be the most compelling team in hockey right now. I mean, maybe the Penguins are right up there with their thing with Sidney Crosby, but it's the Oilers, considering what's on the horizon for Connor McDavid, considering what's on the horizon for Leon Draisaitl. We haven't gotten to it yet, but they hired Stan
and that
Bowman.
they were right at the tip of they were almost summited the mountain, right? Like they were right there.
We almost witnessed the most incredible end to a Stanley Cup final ever, and they fell short. Like, if you start the documentary on the Edmonton Oilers, you start with that speech with Zach Hyman in the locker room, and you go from there. You can make an argument they're going to be the most interesting team this coming season.
And look, I love the Hyman footage, but to me, the most almost chilling part was where everyone's just in silence, and you can hear Gary Bettman announcing that Connor McDavid won the Conn Smythe Trophy. He's awarding the cup to the Panthers. Like, they're just sitting, everyone's sitting all in their gear, looking at each other. Like, that's where I would start it. That was almost stronger than any words, is you could feel how heavy that moment was. I mean, we all know, intuitively when a team that's a heartbreaking loss, but when you see it, man, they're all just scraggly and beaten down. They're, their playoff beards. Yeah, you just show that for a minute and you're going to hook people that didn't, not everyone's looking at X and seeing all that go around that was pretty powerful stuff. I'm pumped for that, the series that's coming out this fall too. I've heard they got some great stuff. It sounds like the first episode is Nylander and Pasternak, and I can't remember what I'm supposed to share or not share, so I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but I just heard they got some really interesting footage, in the lead up to that first round series between Toronto and Boston, but obviously Nylander was injured for a couple games of that round one, and I think he granted them an unreal amount of access for a player that was injured during the playoffs. Him and Pasternak have a story and a connection. Pasternak scores the overtime winning goal in Game 7. You couldn't. That's what I loved about some of these series. You couldn't script that, right? It's you couldn't script Crosby in overtime in the 2010 Olympics. I mean, if you did, they'd be like, all right, this is too cheesy. This doesn't work. But I think look, that's the same, as we've talked about, that's the same series that there are a lot of the same people involved that have done the best work in the other pro sports. So yeah, I wish they could get on the Oilers. I don't know if anything's in the works. And look, if you're the Oilers, if someone approached you with that, do you really want to welcome that in? You'd probably be worried about the distraction a little bit. Didn't work out well that one Leaf season when they did all or nothing.
Are the episodes for that series actually, is there a title for that series that we're talking about here? What's it
I
supposed to be
can't
called?
remember.
I don't remember.
I think it's called like, I don't, was it announced? Something
I
ice?
don't know actually. Yeah.
I think it has ice in the title.
Okay.
But I think it's like not hot ice or something.
I don't know about hot
Anyway.
ice. That's a weird.
It's not that. It's
I know.
sorry,
I
it's like a
know.
play on the idea though. I remember
Yeah.
I
Anyway,
think it's like a play on like the intensity of the sport and the fact it's played on ice is something anyway.
well, the real question I wanted to ask: are the episodes going to drop all at once, or is it going to be like a weekly thing where we get a new episode? I ask because, and I'm pretty sure the SDP is going to do this, but I want to do this. It would be really cool. Say, like, if they drop them like the next 8 weeks or something. What if we like watch the episode? Because I know you're going to watch them. I'm going to watch them. What if we just did like a segment where we just like broke down what we saw? We could turn into Loki like a rewatch pod of that series.
I think they're all going to come at once, but I should check on that.
Okay, well, if they come out all at once,
Is that
then,
bad?
Like, I don't
then
think
you're
it's
just going to have
bad.
to binge it.
Yeah, that's fine. But like, we could do an entire episode or a segment where we just talk about what we saw. I think that'd be a really fun idea.
All right, I'm game.
Let's do it. All right. For whatever the tentative name, the Hot Ice Show, we will do some kind of rewatch.
It's not Hot Ice.
I know it's not
Please
that.
don't show this clip to anyone who was involved. They're probably like, CJ, you're suing us here.
Hot Ice. you actually
Sure.
you have the better voice for these things, actually.
Hot Ice. The players who play the greatest game on earth.
Yeah.
Hot Ice.
That's
Have you
how
ever
talented
seen?
you are. Anyway,
Have you ever seen the Wayne Gretzky? It was a VHS back in the day, so it definitely predates your time. But it's called Above and Beyond.
I have not seen that VHS. VHS tapes, dude, are not. I was in that generation
sorry.
where like we used it, but I've never seen that one.
It's available on YouTube, but I would recommend you just watch like the first 2 minutes because like it's like a legendary, a man who has soared above and beyond all that have come to play this game. Like it's got honestly like a legendary 2-minute intro. I'm gonna drop it in the group chat later. You should. I would say watch the whole movie, but it's probably pretty cheesy and it's not that relevant. But watch the first 2 minutes. And you'll know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I will watch that for sure.
When I was a kid, I got a Sports Illustrated subscription and it came with that movie. And I watched that movie out, basically. I mean, this is a pre-YouTube era, so that you couldn't just go find interesting things everywhere. So I just watched that Gretzky movie over and over and over again.
You just pop that sucker in the VHS tape. You watch
man.
over and over and over.
We had one of the ones and it flipped up at the top, like a top loader. And then you put it in and then you got to slam it down.
That's badass. I just had straight up just what you just insert and it just spat out. Anything else hockey related before I get to questions? Because I did put out a call for Ask CJ some questions.
Bring on the
we
questions.
We can delve into the mailbag a little bit. Thank you to everyone who sent in questions on Discord and on Twitter, as per usual. Starting off from Matthew on Discord. What were your favorite? Well, actually, we kind of went through some of this, but if there were any other moments from the Olympics at Paris 2024 that you'd like to mention, Matthew, would very much love to hear you out.
Yeah. So for me, it was Summer McIntosh. It was the men's 4x100 meter race. I'm trying to think of ones I watched live where I was literally jumping around my living room. Like the swimming was a lot of that. I found swimming's pretty, it's sort of compelling, right? You're watching, you're trying to see the lane and there was a lot there. Those are my two. And then Mo Ahmed, honestly, the 10,000 meter race was awesome. It's unfortunate he walks away without a medal, but he just ran such a strong race and kept up with the best athletes in his profession. And, sometimes you got to celebrate. It's not all just the medal. You know what I mean? I thought he really left it out there and it was a tough one, but those were my favorite events.
Yeah. The 4x100 relay, I think, is going to go down as my favorite from the entire Olympics. Just seeing Canada win, seeing Andre DeGrasse get that gold medal, it was looking like a tough Olympics up to that point because he wasn't qualifying for some of the finals of the 100 and the 200 meters. And then he's able to redeem himself with that run at the end. I know he was injured too, the hamstring as well. For him to run out that final leg and get the job done, I don't think there was a better moment than that, at least for me, when it comes to Team Canada at these Olympics. That was a really awesome moment.
It was cool too how they'd run the women's relay race just before it, so all the women from all the countries were there still watching. Like that, I don't know, like that added an element for me because it's an individual pursuit, but obviously that's the team element, and that's probably one of the iconic moments if you're Canadian watching those games.
Next one from Mostly Leafies. Where would you rank the Leafs in your preseason power rankings? Are they tier 1 contenders again? Favorites? In my opinion, they're definitely the most important team and fairly likely to also be the best. Thoughts?
I don't know that I'd mark them tier 1 contenders. I'd probably put them in the next grouping of teams. I mean, I guess the debate is how many teams are tier 1 contenders. To me, there's no reason to expect them not to have a great season. There's nothing to suggest they can't have even a Stanley Cup season, but it's hard for me to put them above, the best of the best at this point in time. I mean, you can't get around the fact that the playoffs have ended in a familiar way a lot. I like some of what they've done in trying to reshape the blue line. We'll see how the goaltending goes. I think a bit of a question mark there. No problems with the Anthony Stolar signing to be sort of your number 2 guy, but that's a signing made where you're expecting Joseph Woll to play the most important games, and just given Woll's injury history, it's unclear. So I think that there's still probably too many question marks or unknowns to put them at the top level. But I mean, I'd still see them as a playoff team, a team that could even maybe get home ice in the Atlantic Division in round 1. And a team that, if everything comes together and maybe if they make some shrewd moves and lead up to the trade deadline, could be playing deep into next spring. But, it's hard to sit here and say they're a favorite because, or whatever, the tier 1, an absolute cup team, because there's some holes there, and there's just the doubt about the ability of the best players that have been there for a long time to get the job done when it counts most.
Taylor Choma, what movies has CJ watched this summer?
Ooh, I watched this Simone Biles sort of docuseries that was on Netflix, which was actually cool. I watched it right before the Olympics, so the timing was nice. And I didn't know a lot about her story. I was aware that she's been a great gymnast who unfortunately did sort of drop out of the competition the last go round in Tokyo. But that set the bar. I'm trying to remember. I've watched a couple movies on flights I was on. Man, I'm so bad with movies. I'm so bad. But I've actually watched more this summer probably than at any time in the last number of years. Like just more non-sports things. But I haven't been to a theater. Have you?
I have not been to a theater since whenever John Wick 4 was out. I watched Beverly Hills Cop 4 on Netflix. Axel F is the official title. Earlier this summer. That's like the big movie I watched. But I haven't watched that many movies.
I'll cheat. Well, see, I haven't watched a lot of movies, but I've watched a lot of like Netflixy type series and stuff.
Producer Nick says he watched Deadpool and Wolverine in theaters. I've been dying to watch that movie.
Ooh, did you like it, Nick?
Yeah, producer Nick, write us in the chat if you enjoyed watching Deadpool and Wolverine. No, you know what? I'm not really a watch movie on flights type of guy. Like, I know those options are available. I just don't do it. I haven't done that in a while. Ryan Reynolds, very good. Hey, maybe he'll be a show guest one day. So says producer Nick.
I watched a series called Love or Death.
Never heard of it.
It was like a true crime kind of series from something that happened in 1980. It was actually pretty good. I mean, it's a little chilling, but if you're looking for something that comes with some edge, I went to a Taylor Swift concert too. So
Yes,
counts.
I forgot to ask you about that. How was that concert?
I mean, I don't think I'll ever experience anything quite like the same as that. You know, obviously I'm aware of how big Taylor Swift is, but when you see that many people that are that devoted to one thing, like it was pretty eye-opening. I happened to be in Europe and realized that she was semi close by having a concert, and that you could buy tickets that were much less than what you'd have to pay to see her in Toronto when she comes in November. So we went to the show, and it was awesome. Like her performance, like there's a reason why there's that level of devotion, but like what I'll probably remember most, more than like a moment, more than watching her perform, is just like what she does to an audience. And, you know, we came outside, we were at one of the shows in Germany, and like there was like 10,000 people or something outside the stadium, like just chilling. It was like a Friday night. You get this like wristband thing that lights up, but so the whole stadium lights up. And like this, like, I don't know, say teenage girl, 17-year-old girl comes up to me, can I have your wristband? I'm like, yeah, sure. I mean, it's just going to sit in my drawer. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, I don't even know what kind of momentum it is, but she was so pumped. I mean, just, it was such a cool experience. And, you know, I've been lucky because I've liked some big bands. Like I went to one of the Tragically Hip's last shows in Toronto. I saw Radiohead in their prime, and that was a band I loved. I saw Eminem way back in the day when Eminem was like filled the Sky Dome. You know, I've been to Bruce Springsteen concerts. You know, I've been to sort of like some like big acts, but this was like almost a level above it. I mean, I might like some of the music from those bands at the time more than I like Taylor Swift today, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not saying it's the best show I've ever seen, but it was really, really, really good. And kind of the atmosphere made it. I thought, like, I had to take a train about an hour to the show, and like the train, even hours and hours and hours before the show, was just full of Swifties and people trading, you know, the bracelets and all that. And it was.
Do you have a bracelet? Do you have a friendship bracelet?
I don't. I actually have a bracelet that my niece made me, but this isn't related to Taylor Swift. Yeah, we just had a family week with the extended family, but yeah, but it was awesome, man. Like it's pretty crazy. She played All Too Well, the 10-minute version. And like, I was just thinking, like, how many artists could play a 10-minute song at a concert with 70,000 people and like everyone's still into it? Like you do, I think there's a risk, right? Like 10 minutes is a long time. Like you want to kind of get your audience going, but like I just feel like Taylor can do no wrong with
I don't know that song in particular, but like, is it one of those songs where there's like beat changes throughout, or is it the same type of song the whole time?
Yeah, it is. Like it rises and falls. I think it was, I mean, now I'm going to get exposed. If I say that what I'm about to say and I'm wrong, my Twitter feed will be full of it, but I'm pretty sure it's a song about her relationship with Jake Gyllenhaal back in the day.
Okay.
But if I mix that up, Swifties, I'm really sorry, but I'm pretty sure. Anyway, it's a lovely song. I just say, like, to play a 10-minute song in concert is kind of risky in a sense, but not there. Like that was the Church of Taylor that night. I mean, I'm just saying, everyone who was in there, or maybe not everyone, but like the vast majority were not just like, they were set to 12 out of 10 into it, loving it. It was hot, and everyone, I didn't sit the whole show. It was awesome.
Awesome. I'm glad you had fun. Here's this weird one from Totally Offside. If you had the chance to gain complete control over the weather, but in exchange, once per month, your body transformed to look exactly like the Grinch, would you do it? You don't get to pick which day each month. It's completely random.
I think I might do it.
Really?
Because I'm a guy who runs every day, and sometimes the weather is annoying. So like, if I could control the weather every day, I could set it to the temperature that I'm most comfortable in.
Yeah, but like, there'd be a random day where you turn into the Grinch.
I mean, I guess you just call in sick that day. I think I'd still do it.
What if like we're about to record a podcast and then all of a sudden your body just and then you just turn to the Grinch?
I might get fired. That's just the thing. I might get fired because I'd say, well, I just don't do a podcast that day. But if you're not reliable for the people that employ you, if you're just dipping out once a month out of nowhere, maybe that would be bad. But
Steve Dangle would call you and be like, "Hey, we can't have you turning into the Grinch on air."
Controlling the weather. Don't underestimate the the power of that. Like, have you ever like gone away somewhere and kind of had your trip, like maybe, you always never say ruined by the weather, but like I feel like
I
controlling
understand
the
what you're
weather
talking
would
about,
be
yes.
huge.
That's true.
Like don't underestimate that. I mean, the
That's-
problem for all you, I'm just letting you know, like on Christmas Day, I'm dialing in a bunch of snow.
Oh my God.
Like I'm not saying I'm setting the weather to, tropical, amazing temperatures every day. Like I'm going to go situationally throughout the year. But yeah, I think I would do it.
Okay. All right. The thought of randomly turning into the Grinch at some point I can't control scares me. So my first hesitation would be no.
If I knew it was going to happen in the morning, like before I had to leave the house, but like you could be like covering a game and you just turn into the Grinch. I'm not sure how you, yeah. I don't know where that question came from, but thank you. I can tell you, I've lived a long life. I've never thought of that question. I've never thought like, what would I do between these two things until right now?
I think that is going to go down as the weirdest question we've ever received.
We've had some weird ones. We've had ones I wasn't able to answer. That one I at least had an opinion on because I just think controlling the weather.
I was surprised.
Controlling the weather for me would be huge because I don't always appreciate the humidity and heat when I've got to get my runs in.
Bleeding Teal asks if CJ could spend a month during the summer on any populated island, which one would he want to go to and why that one?
Oh man. Any populated island.
Any populated island.
I don't have a good answer.
You're thinking about
because I don't know. Well, because to couple off the last question, I'm wondering about the weather. I'm like, am I going to say a place and I don't realize in the summer it's like 40 degrees and I probably wouldn't be too like, I can only handle heat to a point.
Yeah, but if it's like drier conditions or you're by the water, you're by a beach, like that helps out that situation. It's not like it's going to be. There's a good chance it might not be as humid compared to being in North America. I don't know.
Well, I'm gonna go against the grain and say Iceland. Because I know that that's a place that does not have a great climate, but the best climate is in the summer, and it's a really cool place. And I'm not a big beach guy. Like I would not be one to spend a month sitting on the sand or even a day, let alone a week, let alone a month. So I'm going to go off the board and pick Iceland. And I'm sure that's not what the questioner was thinking the answer would be.
Probably not. But
what about you? Do you have any thoughts? Like you're going somewhere hot. I know it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm going to Jamaica or Trinidad and Tobago for a month and just hanging out there. But at least in those islands, I have family on both of them. So like that's
right.
You know what? That's not even cheating. That's just me being smart.
Yeah. And here I am in Iceland, like wearing a winter jacket in July.
Or just getting a goose just strapped on. Let me get you two quick ones. From Busher Jackson. What is CJ excited about this upcoming season in the NHL? The OV Gretzky chase, Utah, the coaching carousel, potential Panthers repeat, the Oilers chase for the cup, etc. What are you excited about the most for this upcoming season?
Right now, the Oilers thing is top of mind. I'll be interested to see how Utah goes, though. I mean, obviously Arizona, as it like off ice, we know what was going on with the Coyotes, but on ice, like they have been building towards something, and then they took a couple swings, obviously with the moves they made on their blue line, getting Sergachev in there, and then going to a new city. Like I think I don't know that they're a playoff team yet, but I'll be sort of broadly fascinated by how the reception goes. I mean, we all saw the airplane hangar when the players and staff first came to visit Salt Lake, but I'll be curious to see what kind of mark they make in their market, and if that team does in fact take the steps forward that I think they should be ready to. I mean, they should become a pretty good playoff team within 2 to 3 years. But it doesn't, sometimes those plans don't materialize. Buffalo, Ottawa.
Damn.
I'm just saying, like, so all these teams that we expect, Detroit, I guess, if we're in there, but lots of teams you expect to take that jump haven't been able to do it. But I think the Oilers, for me, the most compelling storyline, just because there's all the elements, starting with, the offseason they had, with, the McDavid Draisaitl stuff, with the fact they were in the Cup final, very likable team. I have to say, both teams in that Florida Edmonton series were like pretty interesting to deal with and like really interesting stories. And so I think the Oilers, for me, sitting here on August 12th is the most interesting, but I really haven't thought too deeply about the upcoming season yet, if I'm being completely honest.
Have you read on The Athletic the NHL front office confident rankings?
No. Who won?
Okay. So the team that won, number 1, the Florida Panthers. Would you like to guess where Utah ranks on that list?
10.
You think the Utah Hockey Club ranks 10th on that list?
Well, I mean, I don't know how it was conducted. I don't even know what we're really ranking. I mean, confidence is relative, but
so just as a small explainer, Dom did this for us at The Athletic. They're graded, each front office is graded in 6 categories: roster building, cap management, drafting, development, trading, free agency, and vision. Fans voted on this. This year's edition apparently got over 10,000 responses from fans grading their favorite teams, and about 250 responses grading each team. And your guess is that Utah finished 10th on that.
I'm guessing you're about to tell me they finished 32nd or something, but
no, they finished 4th.
Oh, there you go.
Which is like, that surprised me because you have Florida up there, you have Tampa up there, you have Dallas up there in the top 5.
I mean, Vegas should be up there too.
Vegas is, let's do a quick control.
Vegas might
F
be
here.
victims of like they've had so much success that when you come off a year where you don't really have like, you know what I mean? Like you almost take for granted how good you've had it.
Yeah, they're 11th on Dom's list. They've fallen, actually. So to see Utah be as high up as 4th, and they haven't played a game in Utah yet, like that's a lot of confidence. It's a big deal.
Yeah, I just think they did some interesting things. Obviously, it's kind of easy, and I'll use air quotes, to trade a bunch of players away in a mass draft picks, but they did it in like a really aggressive way at the end. I guess it's a front office we haven't seen operate with a proper ownership group above it, frankly. So it's hard to judge, but I just think they have a nice collection of everything. Now they probably need some difference makers, and that's the hardest thing to get. And you usually get those through the draft. And now they're probably moving into a more competitive window, so they're less likely to get a first overall pick or someone that can shift the world. But they also have so much draft capital and prospect capital that if anyone is out there that can make a big trade, I mean, I would think that they would be on that list. I mean, they just made a pretty significant one with Tampa at the draft. So yeah, I mean, 4th is probably, obviously it's higher than I thought, I guess 10th, but I do think that I understand where the optimism comes from, but they haven't played a game yet. So let's, that could change. You do that poll midway through the year, and if they have sort of a disappointing campaign, I bet that there's huge swings in how fans feel about their front office and their team.
Last one for you from Sumar Sekon. What did you have more of off the barbecue? Burgers or hot dogs?
Burgers. As I mentioned, just off a family week where there was lots of barbecuing, and I didn't have one hot dog, and I had more than a couple burgers. So it's funny. I like hot dogs, as you know, but I would choose a burger.
Yes.
In that situation,
Yeah,
I like a gourmet hot dog.
What do you define as a gourmet hot dog?
Anything with poutine on it at a baseball stadium.
I figured you'd say that. I just need mustard on mine. I don't need like all these frills.
Oh.
Just put mustard on a hot dog.
No,
That's it.
diced onions, ketchup and mustard, both. That's elite.
No,
That's
I
elite.
don't need ketchup and mustard. The diced onions and like, I forget what is it, if it's like cabbage or whatever, but the Montreal style ones, those are cool. I'll have that. You just put mustard, that's it. But like ketchup and mustard mixed together on a hot dog, I don't need it. I'm not 5 years old anymore. We don't need it.
Oh, well, I'm 40 something going on 5.
That was not a shot at your maturity.
No, I know.
Not a shot at your
Look
maturity.
we haven't seen each other in a month, so I'm not going to come out here firing at you.
Oh, you're
We're
gonna
good,
do
buddy.
that? What, next month in September? When we're through preseason? That's what we're gonna
Well,
do. 'Cause
we've
you're gonna
been
hold your
known to
fire?
have a few food battles on this pod, so
Oh, there will be some this season, I'm sure. I'm glad we agree on burgers because burgers are an elite food. Absolutely. Now I want to know how do you dress your perfect burger, and then we'll get out of here.
cheese on it for
Mhm.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm just thinking back to the cottage. I had mayo, ketchup, mustard, and pickle as well.
Okay.
And onion too. But the thing is, we didn't have we had a pretty good array of toppings, as you're hearing. Like, I'm not saying that's the perfect burger, but that's like how I just dressed the last burger. I like mayonnaise on a burger, though.
I'm not crazy about mayonnaise. I think it's an overrated condiment.
Oh, wow.
I think I'd understand people adding mayo on like chicken sandwiches or whatever. I don't need mayo. I
have mayo above mustard on the condiment power rankings.
See, that's where we disagree. What about spicy mayo? Would you mix like sriracha and mayonnaise together? Yes.
I like mayonnaise in all its forms.
Okay. Well, you just built different. But like spicy mayo's good. Spicy mayo's a good idea. I'm not down with regular mayo.
We're now down to like 10 people that are over an hour into this summer podcast while you and I argue about mayo.
That's okay. That's okay. The next time.
Thanks for hanging in. If you hung in, I know my dad's here. Hey, Dad. Hey, Henry.
Hi, Papa, CJ. Thanks for hanging out. This is basic. I treat this as preseason, so like I appreciate everyone hanging out with us, however long they choose to hang out with us. Maybe we'll do another one of these summer drop-ins before the summer ends. But we'll be back in fine form in time for the when the real stuff starts in September and October. We'll be good. We'll be good.
Oh yeah, I'm not even worried about it. We don't have to peak yet. It'd be a shame if this was our best work right now.
Oh god, no! This is our best work now. Just shut the podcast down. Forget it. Subscribe to the podcast, whether on audio or on video, and show some love to the Steve Dangle podcast because I'm sure they need it because no one watches their show. Anyway,
a few people have heard of that one.
Yeah, not that many people.
Do you know what's funny?
Yeah.
This is a quick one we can end on, but
I
was dealing with someone at my bank for like a thing I was applying for, and you have to list your employers or whatever, and the person literally goes, "What's a Steve Dangle?"
What's a Steve? How do you respond to that?
I didn't know. And then I was like, well, it's this guy, and he started up in his parents' basement. He was doing these videos, and now he's got a whole podcast
it's such
network.
A weird explainer for him.
I know, but
Steve Dangle guys is from his mom's basement.
I did explain that it was like a pseudonym, like that it's not his actual name, and that he's got a huge hockey following. And anyway, it's just funny. What's a Steve Dangle from my banker?
It's so weird having people go up to be like, yeah, like you work with him, or like, yeah, I listen to your voice every week through the podcast. Like we lead really interesting lives through this podcast.
I also met more than one podcast listener in Europe, like not on purpose, like people
that is dope. That is dope.
Yeah,
we out here.
I hope those people enjoyed their mayo takes today with today's show.
Well, we just break new ground with food takes on every episode. We'll be back when we're back. Thanks for listening, guys.
What's a Steve Dangle?
The Chris Johnston Show. Inside the Game, twice a week. Follow Chris on Twitter, @ReporterChris. And follow Julian McKenzie, @JK McKenzie.
The Chris Johnston Show.